So good evening, alumni, friends, colleagues, Sisters of St. Joseph, staff, faculty, friends, and President of CHC, Sister Carol Jean Vale. Welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight. We're so happy that you are here for this very fascinating topic. I'm so proud to bring you a one-of-a-kind sneak peek presentation featuring two of CHC's very wonderful professors, Dr. Karen Wendling, 03, and Dr. Patrick McCauley. I am your host, Michelle Presnell. I am the Associate Director of Development in the Office of Institutional Advancement. And helping me out behind the scenes with some technical things this evening is my colleague, Stephanie Reif. She is the Associate Director of Advancement Events. Steph can answer any technical questions for you. Do you want to give a quick overview of Zoom just for those who might be unfamiliar?
Just a couple quick things. If we could have everybody please mute your mics. This is just to avoid some distracting background noise that can happen during these calls. It's like mostly everybody's muted. Thank you. And we recommend that you use the speaker view tonight. If you are on a computer, you can go to the top right corner and click the speaker view button. If the only person you can really see right now is myself, you're already there. If you're on an iPad or another tablet, you can swipe left and right until you find just the person who's speaking. We ask that you please limit moving your device tonight as it is distracting to others. And at the end of tonight's presentation, there will be time for questions. You can ask questions during the presentation by clicking the chat button and submitting your questions there. The chat button is at the bottom of your screen. Or you can wait until the end and you can click the raise hand button, or you can just wave and we'll get to you for questions. Back to you, Michelle.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. That's really helpful, thank you. So tonight we have a uniquely CHC event, the Harry Potter Academic Conference Sneak Peek. The conference itself, as you will learn more about, is in its 9th year. It's gained popularity since its inception in 2012. And I think because it's online entirely this year, we're going to have a much broader audience, which is really wonderful. I myself am personally super excited to hear more about the history and upcoming speakers for this year. So it should be really a great sneak peek. Let me first explain how we'll have tonight's sneak peek. We will watch a presentation by the conference's founders, Dr. Wendling and Dr. McCauley, and then we'll have time for questions. We ask, like Steph said, as you save your questions till the end. And then Steph will come back on and we will facilitate questions like she said. Now I'd like to introduce our two speakers. Dr. Karen Wendling, Associate Professor of Chemistry at CHC, got her bachelor's in chemistry and environmental science from Chestnut Hill College in 03.
And chemistry.
And chemistry, I'm sorry, did I miss that? And earned her PhD in analytical chemistry from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She's received numerous awards for her work, including Advisor of the Year, Chemistry Club 2017, 40 Under 40 Professors Who Inspire 2015, and she's been nominated for the Lindback Teaching Award in 2013. She is one of the founders of the annual Harry Potter Academic Conference, and I'm delighted to have her with us. Welcome, Dr. Wendling.
Thank you.
Also with us tonight is Dr. Patrick McCauley. Dr. McCauley is an Associate Professor of Religious Studies at CHC. He got his bachelor's from Ithaca College, his master's from Binghamton University, and his PhD from the University of Iowa. Dr. McCauley teaches religion and philosophy courses here at CHC, and his published works include Reading by the Light of the Burning Phoenix, a Kantian interpretation of Hess, and On Relation of Kant's Aesthetics in his Practical Work. One of his, I understand it's one of your interests is Kant, so that's interesting. Dr. McCauley is the other founder of the Harry Potter Academic Conference, and we're thrilled to have him with us here tonight. Welcome, Dr. McCauley.
Well, welcome everybody. We're really glad to be here, and we're really grateful that so many people have shown up to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up in not the end of this week, but the end of next week.
Yeah, you're going to notice that I'm actually, looks like I'm muted even though I'm talking, and that is because Dr. McCauley and I are actually both in a classroom at Chestnut Hill College, but with quite a bit of social distancing. So you'll be able to hear both of us off of the one audio channel. So we're going to start this presentation by taking you guys back in time a little bit with a time turner to fall of 2008. And this was when Dr. Macaulay and I were both hired on as assistant professors here at Chestnut Hill College. Right. And he's going to tell the story of how we actually started putting together an honors class that became the origin of the Harry Potter Conference as we know it today.
Well, as you already heard, Dr. Wendling is not just a great teacher here, but she's also somebody who was educated here. And she had participated in what we call here the IDHP program, or the Interdisciplinary Honors Program. And so in that first year in 2008, she was approached by the director of that program to see if she wouldn't be interested in becoming a teacher of a program she used to be a student in. And during that year, during that first semester of that year, we were required to have meetings once a month. All the new professors had to show up and speak with the dean about once a month.
Have lunch, kind of get to know the college.
And at one of these meetings, I started mouthing off about some dream class that I wanted to teach that would draw in some of the best students we had, but would expand an entire year and go all the way across a variety of disciplines. And after that meeting was over, Dr. Wendling took me aside in the hallway and says, "I have what you have asked for."
Okay, I have the class, and what you're interested in is in the Interdisciplinary Honors Program. It's team taught by 2 professors, and I want us to create this course together, and let's do it. Though I didn't know at the time that I think he had 2 children under the age of 4.
Yeah.
So it was a big ask that I didn't realize what I was asking for.
Well, Sister Kathy Duffy took us aside and started talking to us seriously about a class we would put together. And she said she gave us a year to start to formulate it. And the idea was basically a science and religion class, right? I taught religious studies, she taught chemistry. It was a great opportunity to do one of the most challenging courses there are, which is a serious and a rigorous and a balanced class that looks at both science and religion without making one or the other the top banana. Many people teach science and religion classes, but as a person who does that, usually one of the other disciplines takes the dominant role. So we thought it would be really great to have, the IDHP program has 2 teachers teaching simultaneously, and this way we could make sure that it would remain balanced, each of us representing one of the disciplines. So we sat down over the summer in what now is the teacher's lounge up in Fournier, and we started asking how we would do this, how it would go together. And the problem is that, how do you bring scientific perspective together with religious perspective? And so we needed a neutral zone, a zone that was neither science nor religion. And so our original idea was to bring them together in the realm of epic literature. And so we started with the Odyssey, and with Ulysses, James Joyce's Ulysses, which has 18 chapters. And we thought that might be a nice template to start to put it together chapter by chapter over an entire year. But as time went on, we found interest in the Odyssey dropping away, and we saw interest in some of the other books that we were using, like Lord of the Rings, the Golden Compass series, and the Harry Potter series, which were also epic, heroic journeys, rising. And so we started to reformulate the class to have the first semester focused on Lord of the Rings and that entire trilogy. And then the second semester, the spring semester, we would ask the students to read all 4,224 pages of the Harry Potter series, which at the time was not a big ask because they'd already read it perhaps a number of times. And so we had these wonderful, really excellent, driven students, talented students, spending a whole year with us. And our final essay of the year was, it incorporated everything that went on for an entire year, but it was focused on the Harry Potter series because we hit that last. We had them reading it for months, but we discussed it at the end, and the last paper was focused on that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it comes as no surprise to you that those papers were really quite impressive essays.
So we're reading these papers and we're saying to each other, like, it's not fair that only 2 people can read these papers.
Yes. So we started openly talking with them and between ourselves about maybe we could put together some sort of event in which the students could present their essays so that the other students in the class could hear them. They could do a little practicing with public presentations. And some of the other people in the community could begin to hear what kind of quality was coming out of Chestnut Hill College. These students were really, it was those students during those early years. And I saw Amanda popped in here. Amanda Finlaw is on this call, and she's one of those students,
Yes.
right? I was very excited to see her there. So that's how we started thinking about maybe we wanted to put together an academic conference, and these were all Harry Potter essays at the time. And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, so then, right, then the next thought was, let's make a conference. Let's make a small academic conference with Harry Potter. Now, I just want it to be, for the record here, neither Dr. McCauley nor myself are these extreme Harry Potter fans, right? We are more interested in using the books as a tool to engage students, their creativity, but also their critical thinking. And actually, Patrick has a great story about how he came across Harry Potter in the classroom, which was actually before he came to Chestnut Hill.
Mm-hmm. So I taught at Westchester University for 7 years before I came to Chestnut Hill. And at that school, how do I say this delicately? There wasn't nearly the student motivation at Westchester University back in 2000 that you find regularly among the students at Chestnut Hill. Getting them excited about the material took a lot more dancing on the desk than it does here, right? And so at one point, I'm sitting there teaching Intro to Philosophy, and the students start using this language that I don't understand. They start using this word muggle, and they were referring to me, right? You're such a muggle, you know? And I took a few of them aside during office hours that week, and I said, am I being insulted? What is this muggle thing that you people are talking about? And they're like, you don't know, right? And so there weren't even movies out at this time. They were just reading the books. And the students, all these undergraduates, were voraciously reading these books, this series from this author I'd never heard of. But the most valuable thing to a teacher like me or a teacher like Dr. Wendling is ready student interest. It's just, you can never afford to waste that. And if you have it, it's like a pile of gold. And all of a sudden, all these students, all these disparate students in my office hours, all started speaking about this Harry Potter series and immediately entering into political discussions about it and moral discussions about it and clan allegiance issues associated with it.
What house are you sorted into?
And I'm just like, what is going on here? I had never seen so much student interest pop up so spontaneously. And I said, I've got to find out what's going on here. So I quickly got myself a used copy of The Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and started getting into it. And that's when, and that experience there helped us to understand that these books had a real power to draw students into a subject they might not otherwise be excited about. And just connecting it with something they were excited about really brought interest to other topics and made it a lot easier to get it going.
So this was the time around 2008, 2009, a little bit 2010, where we're sort of having this burgeoning field of Harry Potter scholarship, right? We're starting to get the odd, essay that's been published in usually a journal that's very specific to a discipline like political science, but it's starting to make references to Harry Potter, right? There's also some work that's being done looking at the text and the character analysis, right, inside of the books. So we're just starting to get this interest in research into Harry Potter, the way that you would have research into something like Frankenstein or even Shakespeare, right? But there's no place for this to be shared. There's no place to present your research because Harry Potter covers such an interdisciplinary wealth of fields that really what we realized was, well, we have to create a conference. We have to create a small, academically rigorous conference that's going to provide a venue for our students to present their work, but also for other academics to be able to start to share the scholarship that they're working on. And this is at a time when Harry Potter scholarship was sort of a little on the fringes, right? It wasn't really accepted yet as something that was actually important enough to study, right?
In fact, there had been a conference prior to ours at St. Andrews.
That's in the future. That's
Okay.
2012. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I
Yep.
thought they had an 08 one, but go. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So the idea was, which was really neat, is that in the last, was it 2 years? The town of Chestnut Hill had a Harry Potter festival. And even before that, I think for the last 3 years, Chestnut Hill College had hosted its own Quidditch tournament that was totally run by the students.
Through the student activities.
Yeah, through student activities. And Steph knows what I'm talking about here. That they had put together a Quidditch tournament using teams from, even from distant states coming in to Chestnut Hill to play Quidditch.
Brotherly Love Cup.
Brotherly Love Cup. And so we had this interesting synergy happening in this weekend in October where we had this fan event in the town of Chestnut Hill with, butterbeer soda and chocolate frogs. And we had this Quidditch event down on the field at Chestnut Hill. But we had this beautiful St. Joseph's Hall that looks just like Hogwarts. And we need to have a conference. We need to have a place where students, academics, and community members can come and share their research and also hear about what other people are doing, how they're researching into these books.
And on Friday afternoon at that time, there wasn't a huge amount of traffic at Chestnut Hill College. So the rooms were open.
Yeah.
Also, and I hope I'm putting this in the right place, during that time, Sister Carol had spoken at the faculty admin meeting and tasked us all, missioned us all to try to think of ways to creatively bring attention to the college.
And to engage the community in the academics that we are doing here at the college. Yeah.
And so we had been Dr. Wendling and I had already been working together week after week after week on the IDHP class. And so as we were doing this and thinking about this, we thought this might really dovetail well with what Sister Carol just asked about. And we thought it was a real opportunity.
Yeah. So focus in on 2012. This was the first year of our conference. And actually, I cut off Dr. McCauley just a minute ago, who started to mention St. Andrews in Scotland. So in May of 2012, St. Andrews University in Scotland had a Harry Potter conference.
An academic conference.
An academic conference. And while I wasn't there, I'm sure it was very interesting. It was really criticized by area colleges and by the academic community. It was basically seen as a joke that this wasn't academically relevant. It wasn't important enough to be talking about. And like, what were those people doing at the conference? Were they dressing up? Were they waving wands? Like, what was actually happening at a conference, not a convention, but a conference surrounding Harry Potter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we wanted to be very careful to keep this conference well in the realm of academia, and we wanted it to have academic rigor, right? We wanted this to be a meaningful, actual academic conference.
So Dr. Wendling and I sat in her office that first year and we started to really really tried to have a visioning meeting about what this thing would be. There were already out there many kind of like fan conventions for Harry Potter. There was LeakyCon and MistyCon. So if you wanted to go somewhere and drink a lot of butterbeer and have a wizarding dance or something, those already existed. And even here at Chestnut Hill, there was a downtown festival event already in process. There was a Quidditch tournament already occurring. And so we thought it was crucial for us to really make sure that we located what we were doing strictly within the bounds of academics, right? That it wasn't going to be a fan event. It wasn't going to be some sort of fun and games thing. It was going to be, we said, look, if we're going to make this work, it's going to have to be a serious academic event. And
Now,
and
we
that's,
still wanted to have fun with it, but we wanted it to be a serious academic event. And so how do you start a conference? This was actually before, I was gonna say before I knew anything about social media. Like, how do you get the word out that you actually have this event? You can post it on a website, you can post it on the college's website, but it doesn't guarantee that enough people are actually going to see it, especially when you're trying to find people to present at the first conference.
this is one of the biggest challenges of the first 3 years at least.
What we did was we basically, in this first year in 2012, we did a Google search. We looked for local Philadelphia area professors who were using Harry Potter in their courses, right? In their courses at colleges and universities. And we specifically invited them to come to the conference and talk about how they're utilizing Harry Potter in the classroom and how it relates to their academic discipline.
And how effective it
Yeah.
is as a pedagogical tool.
And so while we did have a couple of applicants for the conference that we didn't solicit, many of them we did. We asked them to come and they were excited. Like, they wanted to be kind of founding presenters at
Yeah.
the Harry Potter conference.
That kind of surprised
Yeah.
us. They
It
were really
surprised
excited
us.
to come.
Yeah. We had, you can see here, it was at 3 p.m. It was in the East Parlor and it was about 2 hours and we had 9 presenters.
And one of the essays in there was from our IDHP class.
Yes, yeah. Kate, brought in a paper from our course and presented it. We also started to realize that not every student, even if they wrote a great paper, wants to get up in front of people and read it, right? So we had to do a little encouraging there, right? So then I'm just going to start to move forward in time here, right? So then the next year, we started to get a little bit of traction in 2013, and I'm going to show some statistics a little later on in the presentation, but we started to gain some traction. We started to get more applicants. We had more presenters, and then it really wasn't until 2014 that things started to really take on their own momentum or their own center of gravity. We started to have a conversation at this point about, how strict do we want to be on the academic rigor that's happening at this conference? Because we're starting to have people show up in costume. We're starting to have some presenters actually presenting in costume. And what we realized was that their talks are wonderful. Should we be judging them on what outfit they're wearing? And so we started to get more interest from the community to present really, really excellent papers. But these are community members and people who are not currently in academia who probably wouldn't be accepted at large conferences like Ivy League conferences or conferences that are so closely looking at your degree and your affiliation rather than your content, right? This is starting to become a safe space for academics of all types, of all ages, to be able to come and present.
Yeah, we sat down, the two of us sat down for a while in her office to have that conversation. Do we want to take this as a purely PhD experience? Do we want only people with that level of education having this conversation, or do we want to open it up to people with master's degrees, people with undergraduate degrees, people in high school, and to really bring all all those different echelons of higher education together in one space? Because one of the things about the Harry Potter phenomenon, right, the books particularly, is that little kids were really falling in love with it, but so was my father, right? And so you had all these really interested parties across generations, all in the same room, going, "Yeah, what about that Snape?" And so we took a risk and started really seriously considering people outside of traditional bounds of academia who wanted to present a nonetheless rigorous academic paper. And so we thought that might be something we were willing to take a risk on.
But at the same time, we also were very careful with the actual the content of what was being presented. You know, we have rejected people who've applied to the conference who wanted to read their fan fiction or their alternate ending that they wrote to the novels, or something that just wasn't really in the realm of academia. It's usually obvious if it doesn't fit, and usually we'll approach the person and say, hey, do you want to change this up and maybe go in this direction? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but we do need to be kind of a gatekeeper to make sure that it's still, the academic integrity is there.
I have to say at the outset, during the first number of years, Dr. Wendling was like a hawk on this.
I was a hawk, yeah. I was pretty mean about it. Yeah, I feel like I was like interviewing people before I'd let them come to the conference.
She guarded the academic integrity of this conference with great seriousness, and I think that the conference would not have flourished had she not played that particular role.
Oh, thank you. So in 2015 was perhaps a memorable year to anybody who was at the college at that time, because this was the year when the whole Harry Potter festival, including the Quidditch tournament and the conference, went viral. It went viral around the world. It went on Huffington Post, and suddenly there was a ton of interest in the conference. And I'm going to show you later, there were a lot of people who registered for it thinking that it was the pub crawl, getting it very confused with the town events and things like that. But this was the year where we started having people, flying in to come to the conference and the festival, not just local attendees. One of our plenary speakers at this year's conference was, in 2015, was Loris Vazali, who Patrick is going to fill you in a little bit about his research, but this was a real point, a real transition point, I think is the right word, for Harry Potter scholarship, was his research that he presented at our conference that year.
Yes. Loris Vazali is a practical psychologist. He does a lot of research with regard to surveys looking to answer certain questions about the effect of certain, say, movies, series, or books or anything like that. And so I was looking around for different Harry Potter research, and I stumbled upon his work, which had just come out, and what he and his team were able to show with very, very solid and rigorous
it was an actual
research.
Psychological study on kids.
Right.
With numbers and statistics. Yeah. I
actually went to visit him, and he comes out of Italy.
Well, tell them what happened. Tell them what he found.
So what he and his team discovered was that children or young people who had read the books, not the movies, but had read the books cover to cover all the way through from number 1 to number 7.
And who identified with the character of Harry Potter, main character.
What they found out that these people were able to find themselves more accepting of people who were seen as outsiders in some way, handicapped people, refugees from other countries, people of different races, that students or young people who had read this series were much more capable of being welcoming to outsiders or people from outside the mainstream than any other influence they had ever measured, including knowing people from these groups or having parents from people from these groups. The Harry Potter series had the largest measurable change in the welcoming of the outsider of anything they had measured.
It was a statistically significant increase in tolerance and empathy for the other,
right,
based on reading these novels and associating with the character of Harry Potter.
Right, and if you've read the novels, you know that many of the main characters, Hagrid, and these are all people who are not exactly...
Well, Hermione getting referred to as a mudblood, Ron as this sort of poor outsider, Harry as an orphan, as somebody who doesn't understand the wizarding community. I mean, they're all outsiders. Right? And
in some form.
Yeah, and as you're reading the book, you empathize with these characters, and it actually changes your outlook on the world around you and how you treat other people.
So he had published that material along with his team, and we had a conference that could give him the space to present it. And we brought him here in 2 separate years. And he was in person in I think 15, he was in person.
Yeah.
The year prior, his wife was about to give birth, and we
Yeah,
thought,
so we Skyped him in from Italy and told him, please don't let your wife give birth yet.
so,
Yeah.
so that was, and also that year, because there had been so much Huffington attention, it was great that we had really great presentations to offer that year.
Yeah.
That was, the year before that was also the year, can we get into Maria Tatar?
Yeah, it's coming.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. And also right around this time, I realized that there was still a little bit of confusion here in the Chestnut Hill College community. There was some confusion about what exactly we were doing, because it was on a Friday afternoon, and if you didn't hang around for it,
You didn't see it?
you didn't see it, and you didn't really know what it was about. And I know I had one colleague kind of joke with me like, oh, do you guys have wands or something? And I think he meant it to be funny, but I got a little angry.
Yeah, we were actually hearing
I was gonna say the
whispers in the hallway
the
about,
president and the dean are on this call, but I
Yeah.
got a little angry, and I was like, you know what? We just need to show everybody what we're doing here. And so I printed out.
wait, let me, so she and I were in the office together, and she had a steam about this because we'd heard
I
these
was
whispers in the
upset.
hallway,
Yeah.
right? And she just put her hands on her hips, and she printed out all the papers that were going to be presented on a big sheet, and she
Yeah.
posted it in the
I printed
elevators.
out the titles. I printed out the authors' names, their highest degree, what university they were from, and the title of their talk in giant letters. And I just slapped it with a sticker from Sister Cecilia at the time, slapped it in the elevator so that everybody could see the quality of the talks that we had at the conference. And it was at that point where your general your general Chestnut Hill College student or faculty member was like, oh, I get what they're doing, and this is really, really neat. This is interesting, this is worthy, and now I want to come.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
moment that Dr. Wendling posted that list of presentations in the elevator, you could feel anybody who had been skeptical, there had been a general kind of like, oh, is this just fun and games, switch over to, oh, there's something really interesting going on here.
This is
You
great.
could feel the
Yeah.
transition in one weekend after she had posted those in the elevator. It was a great decision that she made there.
Well, and as we move forward here, I'm going to show you guys something neat. Notice what happens when you go from 16 and 17. I'll go back one more. Can somebody point out, maybe in the chat, what happens from this page to that page? Does anybody notice it?
What do you notice, Michelle?
I noticed that your font changed.
Yes,
Yes.
our font changed, right? So something really important happened in 2016, 2017, which was that Warner Brothers started to realize that the town of Chestnut Hill was making quite a lot of money off of selling their butter beer and their Harry Potter products.
Not just Chestnut Hill, all over the country, Harry
Yeah,
Potter festivals were popping
and
up.
Weekends were popping up. And there was this general crackdown on those festivals, on those fan events, because they were making money and they were using Harry Potter and butterbeer and things like that.
Yeah, so Warner Brothers lawyers were being dispatched to all these different events, and
With undercover agents.
Yeah,
they
seriously.
they were taking photos of the menus to see if there was any copyright infringements. You weren't allowed to use the word butterbeer, that sort of thing. Well, the good news is that Warner Brothers loves our conference, and they love Chestnut Hill College. They have been nothing but supportive. They realize that we're an academic college and that we are an academic conference, that we're all nonprofit. We're not trying to make money off of somebody attending here, right? This is legitimate scholarship. And so they have absolutely no problem with us using Harry Potter. In fact, they actually sent us some t-shirts to give away last year. They really love us. They only made two nice requests, which was, please remove the lightning bolts from the font.
yeah.
And so we accommodated them, and no problem since.
Dr. Wendling had actually worked with them
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah. And with our lawyer here at Chestnut Hill College.
Right,
Yeah.
and so the reason why we got off with a nice relationship with Warner Brothers, where other people were getting sued, was largely because Dr. Wendling, in conjunction with the lawyer from the college at the time, went to Warner Brothers and said, look, we want to be compliant.
Yeah, we said,
Um,
tell us what you want us to fix to make us okay with what you want.
And so she kept changing things little by little, trying to change as little as possible, and they'd send it back, no, not enough.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all. No, they were fine. They were fine. They just didn't want us using the font. Yeah,
And the glasses.
And the glasses. But we weren't really using the glasses. But we digress. We digress. All right. So now we're getting up closer to the present day. You'll notice our font remains as it is now, which is Insula, not Harry Potter, which is a Harry Potter type font. Yep. And just before we move on, we just wanted to talk a couple minutes amongst ourselves here, just to share some of the titles from past conference presentations, because I know we've been talking about how Harry Potter relates to disciplines here, but we haven't actually given you any examples of this. So just off the cuff, we're gonna go for this.
Okay.
Right? Want me
All
to
right.
go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
We have Harry Potter and how the Harry Potter houses represent different political parties, right? So there's politics. We have how magic in Harry Potter actually mimics science and technology in our world. So the wand is to the wizard what the chemistry set is to the scientist, right? What else?
So one of my favorites was a woman who had been a violin player, is a violin player, and she recognized in the Harry Potter series how similar it was, how familiar it sounded to her, that when these young witches and wizards were selecting their wands very carefully, she said it was just like when she was trying to select her bow, because it was very much a similar experience, because it becomes an extension of your own hand when you're a serious violinist.
And the different woods that are used in the novels actually have different resonances for a musician.
Right, so that was transfixed by that one. We had
chess and tarot imagery in the books. We've had the idea of werewolves or lycanthropy as an analogy to HIV/AIDS in the 1980s. Yeah, I know Michelle's opening going, whoa, yeah.
There's a creature.
It's amazing.
There's a creature in the series called the Thestral, which is this kind of like dragon horse, and this one young woman wrote an essay about Japanese dragon horses that fit in with. I couldn't blink the entire time she was presenting.
There's a section of Harry Potter where Rowling is clearly paying homage to Jane Austen.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of what this is picking out the literary influences of J.K. Rowling, as well as using the books and how they relate to different academic disciplines. I mean, we get tons on psychology, right? Dementors is a direct analogy to depression. J.K. Rowling has even said that she created Dementors to represent depression. So we have there's a whole area of disability studies, because we have people in the magical world called squibs who are not able to do magic, right? So this is like an inherent disability. We have people talking about medicine and how crazy the hospitals are in Harry Potter. We have people talking about the pedagogy of what's actually taught at Hogwarts, and how most of the teachers are actually not very good. Most of the learning happens not in the classroom, which then you could argue is experiential learning and internships.
So if you're listening carefully to Dr. Wendling, what she's saying here is that when we sit, Dr. Wendling and I have been to every minute of every one of the conferences, and what happens at the conferences is somebody who has expertise in, say, psychology or in library studies
or folklore
or tarot cards or Jane Austen, they will bring that expertise to reveal a new layer of meaning, a new layer of significance in the material that on our own we would never have any hope of seeing that, right? And every year it's more, I mean, we
keep thinking it might be tapped out, and then it's just not. It just keeps coming. Yeah. So in the very last few slides here, I'm going to quickly go through some statistics on the conference, which you're going to see a couple of interesting things happen. I mean, the first year we had maybe 30 people attend, 50 people registered. Registration was free for the first few years. So we had way more people registering that would actually show up because there was no incentive to show up if you didn't pay anything. It wasn't until around 2016 or 2017 when we started charging a very low fee, which is at $15 now, and that's in keeping with Warner Brothers restrictions. We're actually not allowed to charge more than that because we don't want to offend them. Like, we're not making money off of this. This is money that's used to support the conference directly. And a really cool, well, you see this giant spike in people who are registered but don't come in 2015 because they're thinking that it's the festival and it's the pub crawl.
That was the
Huffington Post year. And then we see in 2016, we're still riding the Huffington Post. And that was the year when the Chestnut Hill town really got in trouble and had to start changing their name. You know, they couldn't use Harry Potter Festival anymore. They were making too much money off of it. And then now we have this really neat trend where I think it's wonderful, where 2018, 2019, and now 2020, hopefully, we're leveling out with our numbers here at a very healthy level, 150, 175, 200 people coming, which is what our facility can handle comfortably here at Chestnut Hill. And we have the people who are registering, showing up, having a great time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what's happened is that as you get to 2017, 2018, 2019, almost everyone who registers attends.
Yeah.
It was during those years that I was talking to a young man, for example, who had driven all night from Texas to be able to be there because he says there's no place else in the world I want to be more than this. But also, not only do the paper qualities remain very high and every year get a little higher, but the attendees come with such informed and really, really penetrating questions. And so the quality of the interaction, which is one of the key reasons you do an academic conference, that it's gone away from just somebody trying to whimsically show up. And you got this amazing collection of people who, even if they're not presenting, are bringing a level of quality to the interaction.
Yeah, actually, it was really cool. The last 2 years, we've had a field trip where like 20 high school students have come from local area high schools just to come to the conference. And you know, we overheard this, but literally one student turned to another and said, like, this is the best field trip ever, because it was so interesting and fascinating to them. And they were also having so much fun at the same time. Yeah. So you can see our presenting authors has come out to a really nice number now. We're at just about 40 this year. So we're really at a nice we're at a nice stable level now. And it's showing that really that Harry Potter scholarship is here to stay. It's not fizzling out.
And just so you know, like during that first year, the whole thing happened in about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Now we have 2 days. We
we
have 2 days with 2 rooms going simultaneously to handle all the essays that we get.
Yeah. We did want to mention a connection that we have. There is another conference that is not a Harry Potter conference. It's a Popular Culture Association conference, but that they have an active Harry Potter academic subsection within the conference.
Yeah.
And so this is developed as almost a sister conference to our conference at Chestnut Hill. And this is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, every February. And so it has this really nice, it's not at the same time of the year, and it's in a different location. And even though we do get some people going to both of them, the SWPACA conference costs hundreds of dollars to attend.
Costs $200.
So yeah, which is actually very inexpensive for an academic conference. I mean, I've been to conferences that they'll charge you $400, $500, $600 just to register. And so there's a difference between our conference, which we want to remain accessible to to community members and to students, versus this academic conference. Even though we have great synergy and great friends, and in fact, the head of that group is our plenary speaker or one of our featured speakers for this year's conference.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's really, we go back and forth. The two different areas have really starting to build, and you can see the next bullet here is that we're openly speaking to them and to the people who present at these conferences, both the SWPACA conference and our conference, about starting a national association for Harry Potter studies. Right? There's some really interesting going in that direction. But Karen and I are fried already. So we can.
One point here that was very interesting, and I'm hoping, I can't see her picture anymore because I can only see 5 of them at a time, but Sister Carol, I really hope you're listening right now, because when we went to this conference in Albuquerque, a huge point of conversation was, how do you get your college to accept the fact that you are studying Harry Potter? How do you get your college to get behind you and support you in this research?
Welcome a conference like this.
And Patrick and I just looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, we have never, ever been questioned at Chestnut Hill about the validity of studying this. You know, Sister Carol has been wonderfully supportive. The college is welcoming. You know, why wouldn't you want this?
And from the very beginning, Sister Carol was behind it, but so was everybody else in the Chestnut Hill community.
Yeah.
When we almost refer to it as like this spooky magic, because when we started doing this at the beginning, where it could easily have failed any of the years, every time we turned around needing something or looking for something or asking for something, somebody would step up or show up and find a way to solve that problem or answer that question or open that room. And so the success of the conference, right, the long, you know, we're into our 9th year, and Karen and I are always associated with it, but this is a quintessential example of we got to meet almost everybody on campus putting this conference together.
And every single person has said, oh yeah, sure, I'll come early. I'll help you with that. I'll do that for you.
I'll volunteer.
We'll provide the coffee. Yeah,
Right.
So it's been wonderful and refreshing.
I'll sit by the registration
whereas
table.
at other colleges, there's whispers of like vanity publishing, or, you know, what else are you doing in addition to your work in Harry Potter studies? We've gotten nothing but acceptance and green lights to make this happen here
So
at Chestnut
that's the
Hill.
behind the scenes kind of secret sauce to this whole thing.
Yeah. So we've included a couple of clips from news media over the years. One of our favorite talks was from a FBI agent, former FBI agent, analyzing Voldemort as a terrorist. One of our plenary speakers was the Harvard professor, Maria Tatar, who spoke, 3 years ago, I think?
That was
4 years ago?
That
Yeah.
was, I think, 15, and she's a national authority on folklore and children's tales, and
Yeah.
so she was that was a major moment in the history of the conference.
Yeah, and then just last year, we had probably our biggest, news media item, which was from the Times Higher Education, which is a London publication, and this was written last year. And this really signaled, I think, to the world that, you know, Harry Potter studies comes of age, that we're no longer being questioned as to whether this is valid or not as an academic pursuit. That we've gotten to the point now where it's stable, it's accepted, and more kids who grew up reading Harry Potter are now in grad school writing their master's and PhD dissertations and theses about topics within the realm of Harry Potter.
To jump in there, there's a generally recognized rule that children's material is usually seen merely as children's material for about 25 years. But after 25 years, the kids who grow up with it are now the professionals and the academics, and it gains an entirely different acceptance when the kids who grow up with it know its true power and value and are able to speak about it academically. And we're very closely approaching that space in the conversation about Harry Potter. The kids who grew up with it are now going to be the people who are tenured professors here and there, and so it's a very exciting time because it's going to hit that stride.
Yeah, and we've also had some benefits in that there have been additional materials, which we actually thought would have a lot of fodder for conference presentations. We've had the Fantastic Beasts movies, we've had the Cursed Child show, and we see little spikes where people do little kind of right after the movie comes out, they write a paper about it. But what we're seeing is more and more the original books are standing alone, and there's still the original books that are primarily informing the research and the scholarship around Harry Potter. So we know we're running a little bit short on time here. We don't want to keep you too long. But we did want to mention that our conference has begun to take on, in the past 3 or 4 years, it's begun to take on a community element. It's becoming a safe space for people who love Harry Potter, who generally tend to be an outsider in some way, because if you think we've already mentioned how Harry, Ron, and Hermione are all somewhat outsiders, right? Because these texts are so attractive, they almost take on a religious significance to young people, particularly young people who affiliate with marginalized groups that are not mainstream. And so our conference is becoming a social space, a protected space for people of all ages, all backgrounds, all religions, all orientations to be able to come and have a really interesting, great conversation about the books. And a lot of what we're seeing now is how the books are relating to current events, discrimination, politics, justice, Black Lives Matter. It's still so present, and so many of the people involved in Harry Potter scholarship are involved in these areas as well.
So a couple of years ago, Cecilia Contrafar is a professor at St. Kate's out in Minnesota, and she was one of our most impressive
Plenary speakers, yeah.
And she was sitting there in the rotunda watching all the people chat with each other about this talk and that talk. And, you know, one of the best things about the conference is that someone gives a talk and you can walk right up to them afterwards and go, oh, that was so great. Let me, what about this and what about this?
Did you think about this?
and Cecilia is sitting there watching all this happen right in front of her with hundreds of people walking back and forth right in the main rotunda. And she looked at me with tears in her eyes and she said, I have dreamed of something like this, but I never thought I'd see it in real life.
Oh, how nice.
It was one of my favorite moments at the conference.
Yeah, so this actually touches on an idea of scholarship that if you're a professor or possibly even a student at Chestnut Hill that you're familiar with, this is what's called the Boyer model of scholarship. Ernst Boyer wrote this book called Scholarship Reconsidered. And what he's saying is, he's saying part of our jobs as teachers, as educators, is allowing there be some format for public sharing of what we're doing, of our research.
It can't be just an ivory tower.
It can't just be in the lab or in your office or in the library writing something. It has to get out into the community. And he actually defines this as the scholarship of integration, right? That the Harry Potter Conference is the integration point for scholars in many fields and community members to come together for a mutually enriching and ultimately educational event.
A few times, Dr. Wendling and I have been called in to give a presentation of the Harry Potter Conference as an example of Boyer, right, of the Boyer Scholarship model. And when you come to our conference, you will see the absolutely highest level of academic scholarship happening there. I hope we've given you some glimpse into Laura Sfizali and Maria Tatar and Cecilia Contrafar. And this year we're going to have Tim Snyder of Yale. You know, we really do have just an incredible display of the very top.
Of richness. Yeah.
But when you walk into the conference, you will see people from the neighborhood, people from Philadelphia.
People in costume, people in suits, and people in jeans.
And so and what happens is because everybody's comfortable and familiar and confident with the material, the conversation between the guy from Harvard and the person from down the street is spontaneous, easy, comfortable, and fruitful.
Yeah.
Right?
Which doesn't happen in other academic conferences, but it also doesn't happen at conventions.
Yeah.
Right? This is a really, really special and unique thing that we have here. Yep. So we can see that we have the interdisciplinary approach, right, with academic rigor and community engagement, all facets of this Boyer model of scholarship.
Can I stop there for just a second? So not only do we have people from town and gown, from the college community and the local community, but I challenge any other conference in the United States to demonstrate that they have the interdisciplinary interaction that the Harry Potter Conference has at Chestnut Hill. The historians, the literary people, the psychologists, the chemists, right? All of us get into the room at the same time, but we all come from various backgrounds. And it's amazing. I can spend my whole career in philosophy or religious studies, and I surround myself with other people like that. But all of a sudden, I come to our conference, and Brent Satterley is doing this sociology reading that it allows me access to this material from somebody else's discipline.
That you would never find out about in any other way.
So the philosopher is being influenced by the sociologist, who's being influenced by the history person. And so it's that part of the Boyer model that happens at our conference is really, really robust.
Yeah. Well, and it's ultimately inherently interdisciplinary. All right, so we wanted to close with, I'm really hoping that you weren't waiting the whole talk just for the sneak peek part. I kind of wish Michelle had entitled it as sneak peek, but here we go. I really would like you guys to genuinely get excited about the 2020 Harry Potter Conference, which is next Thursday and Friday.
The 16th and 17th.
16th and 17th. And it is completely online through Zoom with 2 different rooms running simultaneously.
Registration available at harrypotterconference.com.
We're getting there. Yep. So in addition to 35 academic talks, we have 4 panel discussions, right? Including one I'm very excited about, which is a bunch of doctors and veterinarians talking about science and Harry Potter. We have Harry Potter Studies enters the 3rd decade, which is looking at the current state of scholarship. We have gender diversity and representation in Quidditch. And we have a current kind of state of fandom panel, which is the ghosts of fandom past, present, and future. We have 2 featured speakers, including Christopher Bell, who is the chair of the SWPACA Conference Harry Potter Studies section. He is a scholar that's focused a lot of his research on race and identity in Harry Potter.
And in popular culture generally.
Popular culture in general. So he's actually going to be presenting a reading, an identity reading of Harry Potter that portrays, you can actually read the text and you never get any information about the color of Harry Potter's skin or Hermione's. And so you can actually read the texts as if Hermione and or Harry Potter are Black characters. And if you read with that lens, which is what Dr. Bell is doing, you start to see the text in a completely different way. Our second featured speaker is Brent Satterley, who is addressing head-on kind of a current controversy in Harry Potter studies, which is the tweets that J.K. Rowling has made recently, which seems to be coming out as against trans people. And so Dr. Satterley is viewing this as a way that most of us are in the fan community, as a betrayal of what we see the books as standing for in terms of equality and social justice. So our plenary speaker is Professor Timothy Snyder from Yale University, and he is the best-selling author of several books. I think most popularly known is On Tyranny, which is a book that fits in your back pocket. And he just recently published in the last month, Our Malady, which is about the healthcare system here in the United States.
So I turned my attention to Timothy Snyder about 2 years ago because I'd heard some buzz going around his book. Which is a 20-step analysis of how governments go from a democracy to a tyranny or a totalitarian government. He speaks 11 languages and focuses on the 20th century history of Eastern Europe. And he is a recognized authority on analyzing the telltale signs of a 20-step process. All right, so that
20 steps to go from a democracy to a tyrannical regime.
Right, and so his On Tyranny book is called 20 Lessons, and each of them is one of the steps. And so I started reading that book because of what I saw that seemed to echo some of the things going on in, say, like 1984 and Animal Farm from George Orwell. And Snyder was seeing some of those same things, and he started to describe them in this book. And in the middle of that book is a list of some of the most important books one should read, like Hannah Arendt's The Origins of Totalitarianism. But of the 20 books he lists there, the last one is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And as soon as I read that, I immediately started to try to find out how to get in touch with this guy and get him to Chestnut Hill as our plenary speaker. And so Dr. Wendling and I have been working for the last 18 months on this process. And
knowing that with the election coming up, it was 2020 or bust.
Right.
Like it was now or never. This is the perfect time for this plenary speaker in the history of the conference.
you know,
So,
we wanted to be able to have this voice coming from Chestnut Hill 3 weeks before the election, and so we saw that coming, and we just turned over a rock to try to get that to
and
happen.
he's really excited to be speaking. He's going to be live from Vienna, and he's excited because nobody else has asked him to talk about this part of his book ever. And his title is The Deathly Hallows: How Literature Helps Us See Evil in Politics. So we sort of have this trio of our featured and plenary speakers, which is covering Rowling's LGBTQ comments, the politics, and then race, which is so current with what's happening in our country right now. Yeah. So I'm going to encourage you guys to go to harrypotterconference.com. For a mere $15, you can register for the conference. You will get two emails, one to the Griffin Room and one to the Raven Room. And I'm actually going to quickly switch screens here to show you the conference's website. And so the draft schedule is posted as well as the link for registration. And I'm actually going to click open the draft schedule I know it's going to be a little small on your screen, but just to start whetting your appetite for some of the talks that we're getting here. Nonviolence, reading Harry Potter in the post-Trump US, disability studies, activism, looking at Harry Potter's literary influences, religious themes within the text. And this is just the first day. If you scroll down, you will also see what's happening on Saturday, which is a whole psychology section, additional textual analyses, Harry Potter and education, where we also will have our high school students reading their papers, and inside and outside of the text.
This is Quidditch.
Yeah. So we really hope to see you guys at the conference. And
see you.
No, we'll see you. We'll see you at the conference, and we are really looking forward to it. And in many ways, 2020 is the best year ever because we have people attending from England and Turkey and Vienna and from the West Coast in a different time zone. So while it was very hard to put together the schedule so that nobody would presenting it midnight local time, we are really excited to have our speakers from around the world coming this year.
There's no doubt that this is the highest quality lineup that we've had in all 9 years.
Yep. So we really hope to see you there. So I'm going to go back to our slide, and Michelle, we can turn it over to you. Thank you guys all for coming tonight and for letting us run a little bit long.
Oh, that was so much. I can speak for everyone when I say your passion for the subject is just infectious. I'm all jazzed up. I want to go to the conference now too. It's just wonderful. Thank you. I was really struck personally by the how well it meshes with the mission of Chestnut Hill College.
Absolutely.
I think maybe other people were struck by that too, the message of inclusion. And when you're talking about just having trouble launching things like this, I thought, yeah, this is a natural fit. I'm not surprised that you didn't run into barriers here. So what a wonderful story. I'd like to open it up to questions from anybody.
I did see someone had a question about if you register for the conference, will there be recordings available afterwards? We're hoping to do possibly like an encore of the conference, but we can't make all of the presentations like publicly available because not all of the presenters have given permission to that, especially if a person is presenting their research and they're writing it up for publication. They're fine to present it at a conference, but they don't want it publicly available to the whole world because it takes away from their publication in the future journal. So I would really say if you could possibly be at the conference on Thursday and Friday of next
Friday
week.
and Saturday.
Sorry, Friday and Saturday of next week. Please be there because there are some talks that will only be available on those days.
And all the presenters are going to be live after the presentation to do the question and answers. So we want it,
Yes.
so
So it's going to be way more dynamic. You're not just watching a all these videos. Even if some videos are pre-recorded, all the presenters are there live for questions.
Dr. Wendling and I have worked really hard to try to maintain as much of that community spirit that's become such a central element, even under these COVID conditions. And so we're that being present on those days is something we're really trying hard to do.
That's
Yeah,
great.
I have a question, Jackie Reich here, and I'm one of your colleagues that has felt like this is just a great thing that you guys are doing, but tonight's presentation just really cemented, the absolute scholarly quality of what is going on here. Not that I ever doubted it, but it really is. I just loved all the references to Boyer, for example. But so I'm a little embarrassed that I don't know the answer to this. Do you offer a discount to Chestnut Hill College students for attending?
Actually, we've always let Chestnut Hill College students with their ID just walk into the conference on campus and not even register. And if a Chestnut Hill College student wants to attend the conference, we can actually register them for free. We don't want our current students having to pay any registration fee at all. So I just need a list of their names, but it has to be students who really want to attend. Because we have a limited number of seats.
We have a Zoom ceiling at this point, and if we have to make the attendance number higher, it's going to cost. What is it? How much does it cost to go to?
We have up to 500 seats at this point, and we don't want to go over that unless they're paying, so that we can pay for that difference.
We have to have the money to pay for the higher number, which have to, and so so we have up to 500 now.
Yeah.
So we
the
can't
short
just.
answer, Jackie Reich, is that yes, if students want to attend, and we just had a couple students from our honors class this morning said, yeah, put me on the list. We're happy to do that.
Okay.
Right? We want our students to be able to attend, definitely. No questions asked.
I'm especially interested, not surprisingly, political science in the plenary speaker and having my class come. Are you anywhere near that 500 limit right now?
No, you can give me your class. I just wouldn't want you to give me the list of all Chestnut Hill College students.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, Suzanne Conway is asking for something similar, as well as Mia Grogan.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much.
No, our pleasure.
Great.
Nobody in the Chestnut Hill community should miss this lecture by Tim Snyder.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, this is Sister Carol Jean Vale. I have never heard the whole story told.
Oh, no, really? Yeah, you're such an important part of it.
Well, I heard pieces along the way, and remember when you were getting started, but I think it is so interesting how this evolved into what it is today, and really has settled out as something recognized as the excellent piece of academic work that it is. But I want to say, listening to the two of you, I think everybody can see why you're two of the most popular professors at Chestnut Hill College. Your enthusiasm, your energy, you're so interesting when you speak. I just really want to affirm all the work that you've done, and especially under these circumstances. I know it has not been easy, and I'm really looking forward to some of those presentations. So congratulations.
Over the summer, after we went virtual in March, Karen and I got together really quickly, even before we'd close, and say, okay, we have to have a serious conversation about Harry Potter next year. So we started talking about this in March. And then we started really doing some major chess piece moves
Homework.
over the summer, trying to see, because we knew, Karen graduated from here, and both of us have this deep abiding care for the institution. And we knew that if we could pull it off, we would be putting a flag up for academic activity when almost nobody else was going to be able to do that. And we wanted to go for that and see if we could do it, because look around, see who else. I mean, we have the biomedical lecture that just went on. and we have this going off within a couple of weeks of each other. And if you look around at the other colleges, I hear nothing but crickets, you know.
Yeah.
But Chestnut Hill is awake and alive and putting stuff out there. And we wanted that all the way back in March. We're like, this is something that we've got to be able to figure out a way to do.
And actually, we've had such wonderful support from our communications team on the campus. I'm going to give a shout out to Greg Gorski, who just put together a promo video for us, which is a first for us. And I've included that hot off the press YouTube link in the chat here if anybody wants to take a look at that.
Not to mention my background.
Yes, actually, if you look at Dr. McCauley's background right now, that was hand drawn by Raphael in our communications. He was an intern in our communications group. Yeah. So you got to move aside and show them the dog, Patrick.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
This is part of this.
Little Griffin.
No matter where we go, people are helping.
Yes, people are helping. It's the Harry Potter and the Chestnut Hill College magic.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you both. I think have one last question from anybody. I think we've gone a little over, so I think we're doing really good. Steph Reif, did you want to mention Harry Potter trivia?
Yes, on Friday night of
yes.
next week at 7 p.m., my office, the library, and student activities will be hosting Harry Potter trivia. Michelle, if you can put the link in, my computer's doing that glitchy thing. It won't let me get to the link. If not, wonderful. I will also send it to everybody who registered for tonight. So it's a trivia night. It's open to anybody who wants to join us, alumni, students, faculty, staff. So come on out to it. It'll be a fun night.
Great, thank you.
If anybody asks, oh, I heard the Chestnut Hill event was canceled. The festival is canceled. The Quidditch is canceled, but the Harry Potter conference lives on, open 2020. Best year ever. It's going to be great. Yep. We hope to see you there, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for coming. This was one of my favorites. This was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who hung out in there with us. We're a little bit late, so thank you so much. No, it was fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you for your time. And we'll see everyone in the next call next month. Look for us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.